S&P makes a little reversal today. Obviously, we had the headline risk. We have three major headline pieces of risk that we're going to get into here. What I want to do is just get into the basics. We obviously did the undercut and then rally on the news that Trump was possibly looking at going to fire the Fed chair. And then he said, maybe, maybe not. Maybe I will. And then it did not end all day long. But, that was 80 basis points in a very quick period of time. But from the open, it was just straight selling. Candidly, and it's been this way from Monday, since we started. And this is really where you're at right now. And we can all see this very clearly, but you're not really going anywhere. In other words, if I just look at this from the SPX and we come back to this area right in here, what do you have? You have nothing. And this is important to get. Like, you haven't gone anywhere. You really haven't. If we take a look from over here, from Thursday's level, right here, this 4 p.m., and then coming straight across to Friday at 9:30, where have we really gone? And then let's mark off Friday at Friday at 4. Where are you from the beginning of last week to now? Maybe you're up 10 basis points. Maybe we are. It looks like 13 if I stretch it. And meanwhile, if we just take a look at what that has led to, is this massive swing, right? If you just took the high to the low, you have about a 2% move, or a 182, 18, we'll call it. It's an issue, and you're rotating throughout it. And what you're doing is the smaller names and the mid-cap names are actually the ones that are moving. IWM obviously sold down pretty hard here. And if you take a look at where we were when we sold down from that news on Tuesday with the CPI, I mean, it's not crazy to remember to mark off these 830 bars as I always suggest. As always, subscribe to the channel, click all notifications, and we have a lot to get into, so let's do it. But I do want to show one thing before we get into like the nitty-gritty of the day, and I think it's worth our time to just take a moment to do this. So despite the fact that we're not going anywhere, and I'm going to just change this really quickly to a regular and then drop you down here. Perfect. Despite the fact that we're not really going anywhere, if we look at the breadth of the market, you can see the 20, this is the 5, the 20, the 50, and the 200. We're still above where we need to be. And I would argue that the rotation in the 20 is exactly what you want to see for just rotational purposes before you go higher. A matter of fact, if you look at these pullbacks, when you're over the 50 here, and this drops to 50, it's usually a rotational area, and that's something to consider. On top of that, you've had the 5-day pullback all the way to a 14 yesterday, and when you start getting in those low teen single digits, that's usually where you're setting up for some kind of bounce. Now, the only thing that I want to leave here with before we get into the nitty gritty, and I'm just going to drop these all back so you can see this, and why I'm thinking about it. If you're on the wait list to get into the community, there are 3 days left. So just make sure that you check your inbox. If you're trying to get in, there is a link in description for the wait list. And I do try to pin it sometimes. But see this bar right in here? See how that bar encapsulates everything in here? That's a problem. What I really like today is the up, undercut, and then over. So what we really want to make sure of tomorrow, more than anything, before we get into the nitty gritty, which we're about to, let's make sure that we have it marked off perfectly, is that level right there. 618. You definitely do not want to close below 618 tomorrow. Let's get into it. Now, we're all awaiting the passing of this crypto bill, and at this time, the resolution is not even ready or at being accepted at the time that we're recording this, which is right around 5 o'clock. So take this with a grain of salt. But they all rallied on the premise that this is going to pass, and they all look fantastic. Let's just call it what it is. If we look at coin on some of these key levels, how we've been struggling, we walked through yesterday how we did this trade. And if you haven't watched that video, I'll link yesterday's video at the end of this. I'd strongly recommend that you just watch at least that part. You can kind of fast forward into it. I'm going to do a full video on this, a full breakdown of everything that I used to pull that trade off where we actually bought down here. And I did take that. It was just a day trade we got out in here. What's going on here? Why are these things moving this way? It's all the crypto news that you guys know about. I do want to point this one level out to everybody that I think is super important. If you go to the opening print, the literally opening price of this trade was right here. And that price point, you can actually see the exact open right here on that bar. But it was like 381 was the exact open. If you go and take a look at that area from here over and you drop the 381 level, you'll see that you've been fighting that opening print for some time. You actually even hit it last night and you bounced off of it around 3 o'clock yesterday. That has easily become a decent support level. And now you're playing around with that 399, 400 area. really playing around with the top of this. But you're seeing a lot of these names move on the premise that this is going to get done. And frankly, I do think it gets done. But right now, all that's kind of baked into this. And I think that gives us a little bit of an issue. And we'll get there. But you're seeing all these secondary names that people have to be in. Just everybody remember that this is exactly where the insiders sold, and this is where everyone's buying. So when you kind of walk through these and realize that these things have a book value of about $7, nothing wrong with trading them, just understand what you're trading. And the question really is, do you want to be around when the music stops? I would argue that you don't. There are very specific names here that you're going to want to be in. I do think coin is one of them. I just don't know with the risk tolerance here. Do you have to rush into this stuff? Like everybody knows that this bill's coming. Is it going to be a sell the news event? What I noticed here about something like this SBET is they just kept stepping you up all day long. But then in the same brain, if you come and take a look, the BMRN, which I keep forgetting this symbol, BMNR. I don't know why I keep having a hard time with this one, but I do, which is crazy because I keep shorting it. But maybe it's too many symbols, or I think it's too close to Biomarin Pharmaceutical. Anyway, it is in my head. If you take a look at this, you're hitting that 52, and then you just keep rejecting. So you're getting these trading ranges off of it. I think you're better off staying in your trading ranges. You guys could just watch these levels and utilize them. I would suggest you're just better off using your trading ranges and going from there. If I clean it all off right now, you opened and you couldn't get above the open. So if you had to say, where's the money going? Well, the money's going into this one. And is that because we're seeing things like ETH start to just absolutely break out here? And the answer could be, yeah, it's starting to make sense. People are starting to connect the dots here and understand that this is really going to be part of the stablecoin process, because they're a huge part of the stablecoin process. When you take a look at Ethereum today, you can kind of start seeing the breakout, the push here. And we've been talking about this for months, that it was just a matter of time. It was to see the base. You've been basing since May on the break, and now you finally caught up. There's not much to say here. I think you're heading back to that 4,000. I think it's pretty obvious you're heading back there. And again, do we see a sell the news event on this? I'm not so sure. I will say that there's a lot of excitement about this. We've been talking about this cup and handle as well. But I think you have to look at the names that make the most sense. To me, there's like two names that really stand out here. If you want to be looking for a treasury, the only one that ever made sense to me was MicroStrategies. And other people will look at these other treasuries, and I'm not saying they're not going to work, but the net asset value of those treasuries versus what they own is laughable. And they don't even have the ability to cover their debt. So they can't ever issue debt. They can only really ever issue equity to get more Bitcoin or Ethereum, or as this one's going to be known as Tron, right? Which makes sense. You need one. What is that? SRM, that symbol. And this makes sense for them to flip and become that thing, because Tron is huge with stablecoins as well. But maybe focus on the names that Jamie Dimon is saying, hey, these guys are ahead of everybody. And we're going to have to understand that. So one of the comments that he had, and a lot of people today are looking at the stock going, oh, it's breaking out because of my double inside bar. No, it's breaking out because the guy that runs the largest bank in the world, JP Morgan, came out and said they're ahead of everybody. This was comments that he had yesterday. And it's really important to understand, hey, why are these things moving? These comments were reiterated today. Circle CEO even printed out his comments and said, yeah, we are ahead of everybody, and had other comments about that today. Is it getting more play because of crypto? It is. But when someone like that comes out and starts talking about your stock, it's going to move. And that's why you saw the move. Now, you have huge volume on something like this. And when you see that volume, at the end of the day, it's super easy to figure out what you're supposed to do. But what we did today, and I'll walk you through it, and then you can watch it actually live, was really simple. We knew that we had to find the pain spot. And the pain spot on most trades like this, when you have this amount of aggression in them, this amount of speculation, is you just go to the top of the peak and you drop a VWAP and watch how it acted. Rejection, got kind of near it, not really, but rejected over and over again. And then you could just see here, as we like to say, riding the lightning, rejection, rejection, rejection. And then you could see right in here, the flip. And once we have that flip and that battle on the 15, we have everything you need. Up, over, retest, flips, goes. So this bar right here told you everything you needed. Oh, we hit. There you go. We flipped, and then it was off to the races. But in here, it presented a really interesting opportunity to get involved in the trade. And I'm going to clean this off for a second. And all we were trying to do with it was get up and in this trade. And I'll drop this off to the regular price point. So we're watching it move up. And then as soon as it starts to move, here, watch this on the 1. As soon as it starts to lift, oh, okay, it could be on today. And they gave you really clear indications. Up, over, fails, but you never got below the open. And on days like this, you always want to watch that. Like you never could get below that opening price. You did the undercut, but you never closed. They had enough power to whack it down. And then when they flipped it, it told you everything you needed to know. So once you knew test couldn't break. So we get involved here, start picking at it, getting involved here, looking for the 3-bar pattern, trying to get ahead of it, doesn't come down, hits the same level and does what? Holds, reverses, add, and then it's just off to the races. And I'm trimming into these moves. Why? I trim into them so that I can hold some, but candidly, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know that you're going to break this level. Everyone will say, oh, you knew because of X, Y, and Z. No, you had an idea, but you don't know that that's what's going to happen. And now everyone will say, oh, it was so easy because once you flipped, everything's easy until you're in the throw of things. Do I think this can go higher? Yeah, I think if you start looking at this from a PE perspective instead of a supply-demand perspective, you're going to have a real issue. And I do think that this has the potential to go a lot higher. Do I need to get involved with it tonight or today? I'm in from where we are, and I'll walk through what I think the biggest challenges you're facing right now are. But let's take a look at this live. That's really interesting. That's really interesting time to be doing that. I bought some circle here. I'll know really quickly. Took forever to get filled. You've got buyers there. Start getting 3-bar patterns here. I'm going to go to 215. If you were worried about it, you'll break even on it here. Just take it. Take the W. Just got it. I think you're going a lot higher. I think I got a shot at this today. At least 215, $7, $8 there. New highs. 3 or 4, whatever. If you want to trim it, trim it. Actually, I'm going to take something out of it. See what we're going to do here. Because are we going to flip the peak VWAP today? Is today our day? Or are we going to get rejected? I want to see if we're really going to flip it here. If you're day trading it, then you're going to have to think about that low is now your stop. The 207.30 has got to be your stop, which is really right around our cost. Trimmed. I got to trim when I can. I can't trim when it breaks. Even though it's like a big company, it's pretty thin. Circle, I trimmed, and the rest is at break even. It should have gone. It didn't. And I think you're going to reject it now. It is what it is, but that's your peak VWAP and we're rejecting it. As much as I want to play it, I got to play what's actually happening. It can go, but rest is break even, which is really that low for me. I'm just going to use that low, 307.10, and just leave it alone now. Really important to watch this stuff play out live. And this is why when I do this, we always look at the timestamps and I'm always showing you where we're getting in. Also, if I have the live footage like there, I'll show you what we're doing, exactly what we're doing, because it gives you an understanding of how this actually works. And after 26 years of doing it, anyone can show you how pretty it is after the fact and go, oh, just get involved because you flip this. It doesn't show you what it's like when you're actually in the trade. And you have to make decisions. Is this going to hold? Is this not? And it's giving you indications here by the wicks, and then it's giving you some real indications in here that it's going to hold. I mean, you held the line perfectly. And you just have to know where to put the line. But once you see that, you know you're okay. I'm a little concerned about 3 major things. But the first thing is, everyone's so convinced that this bill's going to pass. Yesterday, we were told it was going to pass this morning. Now, all the names traded up. Everybody got giddy on the SBETs of the world. Everyone's out buying Ethereum because now they all understand that and Tron and now that's the big stablecoin trade, right? So everybody's all giddy about that. What I would suggest is the one thing that could really hurt us here is this bill gets passed out down more. And they can't even focus on that resolution. Now they want to use, I think they were saying that they're going to use crypto that has to be looked at for your mortgage. They're going to have to accept it as assets. I don't think that's going to fly. And I think you have to be really careful about suggesting that. So we'll see how this goes, but we'll see if that gets through or not, or if this gets dragged out. And I think that's a real problem for some of these things that have broken out. That's the first thing that I think is an issue. The other issue that you have outstanding is with Powell. Now, Trump's saying that he would not fire Jerome Powell. And this was all over the news today, which led to huge volatility in the market. And the problem with this is, quite frankly, we've never had this before. We've never had someone saying they're going to fire a Fed chair. Even if they didn't like him, you're pushing the boundaries on whether or not you're even able to. And there is a way that he actually is able to do this, just to be clear. Now, there was supposed to be a meeting tonight with the House Republicans on the Finance Service Committee and are scheduled to meet with the chairman. The votes with crypto are in trouble. And so they're not going to have this meeting. So at the time of recording this, which is around 5, they're not going to have this meeting, just so you know. It got postponed. I also think it got postponed because the optics are really bad. But here's the issue, and this is how they can get them. They always have these guys testify. When they have them testify, and this is why people always say that when they do it, if you say one thing and it's wrong and the word's wrong, that they can just say, oh, you lied. And so they're going to go after them. And I'm not saying you make your own decision on this, guys. But Jerome Powell accused of lying to Congress over $2.5 billion. Fed headquarter renovation calls for punishment grows. They can get rid of him for cause. So there is a causeway that they could get rid of him. And I don't think that it would get to that, but this would be how they would do it. And I don't know that there's enough meat on the bone. And I also don't know that people want to do that. The speaker came out today and said, yeah, we'd be better off with somebody else, but do we want to push this boundary? And I think that's really the question. Do you want to push that or not? I don't care where you stand politically. I don't really want to see, and I am not a fan of this guy at all. I think in 26 years of trading, I think he's absolutely the worst. And I think that you can empirically measure him as the worst, quite frankly. But I actually can do it. All you'd have to go and do is look at the Fed funds and just look at the amount of destruction since he was in power based upon his movements. What I would suggest with this is an outlier. Does this kick up again tomorrow? Do we see more volatility with this? So now you have the crypto outlier. You have this. We're all waiting for this to pass. It does not look like it's happening tonight. We have this JPOW outlier. And now let's get to our third outlier. And that's going to take us right into ASML. Now, the thing about ASML was their bookings were as light as they've been in the past 2 years, really. But Samsung, who was going to buy stuff from them, lithography machines, I'll call it stuff. It's a $500 million machine. But they put it on pause because nobody wants to deal with them. Everybody wants to deal with Taiwan Semi. Taiwan Semi comes out with earnings tonight, 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. What happens there is anybody's guess. But everybody's leaning towards Taiwan Semi should crush. Now, if ASML was down about 75 points, if Taiwan Semi shows any weakness or does not light the world on fire the way that everybody's expected and it's at the highs, you're going to have a problem. And you've had it happen before where they come in a little bit light and then that's it. It's just a mess. I don't know how this is going to go. I think their earnings are going to be fantastic. I think they should be fantastic, but we never know how this is going to go. So a lot of these names are really bidding up ahead of this, and not just the big names like the AVGOs, but AMD benefits greatly from this. Absolutely. If there was a stock that benefits the most from understanding the capacity, because when you look at Taiwan Semi, you look at capacity utilization, and these places can actually run over 100%. But if you look at what happened today with AMD in the open, they couldn't get in fast enough off the open. Even when you came down here and today, that was it. It was on, right? So we see this break from Tuesday. It's up and over, test, break, over, retest, and then it's on like Donkey Kong. And it just breaks out. What's important about this is that people are playing that capacity utilization has gone up dramatically. And it very well may have, and this may be fine. But that's the thing that could hurt us tomorrow. You have a trifecta of things that could really rock you tomorrow. It seems to me that the Powell issue might be backburnered, but coming in tomorrow, not having crypto, Bill further along, not having Taiwan Semi crush on the level that everybody expected it to, they're the things that could really hurt us. And they're the things that are on our radar. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on PPI and CPI because we've already gone over that at nauseum. What I would say is that there are some really interesting developments here. I don't know how this plays out with Tesla. I will just tell you that you have a really big battle going on. Take a look at this for a second. We're going to get rid of the 12 and I'm going to get rid of the 22. I use a 12, a 22, and a 55. You should use what you're comfortable with. But what I have here is a real battle. And here we are, and we break the 55. You just closed over the 55. You're over it. So you've been riding the lightning, as I like to say, and now you're back over that level. That's really hard to miss. And what that means to me is I have institutional buyers in here. Doji broke down, flips, institutional buyers. And I think it's worth pointing out today that this thing should have fallen apart. It should have fallen off a cliff, and it didn't. If you really take a look at this, here's your opening. Oh, I closed below the 55. Here's my opening. And then it just goes. And it wasn't just once. It was all day, all the nonsense, but it just kept going. So what does this mean? Well, I think it means that you have some buyers. And I think that you could find up flipping and make that higher high tomorrow, and you can push. There's a move here, and I would be watching this. And I'm not talking about anything more than looking at it from a trading perspective. But when you come back to, let's say, this buy area or this close before obviously that huge run up and then the retest, and that became support until it flipped to resistance, you're right in this area. We have a huge resistance area right in there. You probably can even see it maybe a little bit clearer if we just dropped it Well, let's just drop the volume profile from there and see what we're looking at. Yeah. So you can see it in here. I mean, you have this huge wave of stuff. Let's call it stuff, but it's really volume there. And you can see that here's your point of control from that period of time. So you're okay, but this should kind of give you a mark up to 329 pretty easily if you could get through it. I'd watch this tomorrow. I would also take a look at this stuff and specifically the crypto space and see if you get a pullback. If you do, that would be the area of interest that I would look at when they think the crypto bill's dead. But the movement today with housing falling down, even with PPI, or even looking at the regional banks that undercut and then rally back to break even, it's all one big trade if you look at it. If you really just, it's really kind of interesting because it's one big trade. I mean, here's right here, and here's the open all the way down back to the close. And then you come here and you take a look at the regional banks. It's the same exact situation. So we have some things that we have to get through tomorrow. My plan is to see what actually transpires. I do think Taiwan Semi could be great, but you never know how it's perceived. And even when you saw something with ASML, what really got them in trouble wasn't just the bookings. It was coming out and saying 2026 tariffs. We have no idea how to give guidance. We don't really know how to give guidance, so we're going to give you this. And they gave their most conservative guidance that they possibly could get. Taiwan Semi may do that because they're not aware of where they stand. And that in itself could be an issue.